5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
Let's do some Top 5 at 5 and get to a couple of other stories the rest of this hour. A good hour, by the way. If you missed it, you can podcast it after the show. Bill Guerin joined us about 3:15. As it turns out, it was not in studio, but I think it was still a good close to 1 hour, maybe 55 minutes of conversation. So that will be available later as soon as we wrap things up tonight. I thought about it, but I rose above the cheap shot of what we were talking about before that last break. Billy, looks like Colorado's up 1-0 in the Western Conference Finals. What did you see last night? And then he would correct me and say, well, no, actually, I think Vegas won. And I would say, I don't think so.
The Colorado Avalanche lost game 1 at home? Not possible.
I didn't think that. I mean, I thought they were too good. But it probably would have slowed down the whole discussion. But go ahead.
That's where, and we can start there. That's where it would have gone from just the usual good back and forth to maybe not as friendly, maybe not as fun, had you done that. But I will say, and you and I talked about this during the break, if the Vegas Golden Knights can continue the momentum that they earned from a 4-2 victory over Colorado last night, I was bouncing back and forth again. They got up 2-0. I don't know if they made it 3. I think they did, actually, because Colorado was looking to be the first team to go back-to-back 3-0 deficits and win, maybe ever. I think I did hear that on the broadcast last night. They got 2, but could not get it any closer. An empty net goal by Vegas, and they won game 1 right here on the Fan, 4-2. We should maybe give some warning to people that if Vegas does win and advance to the Stanley Cup Final, we're going to bring back an old classic bumper-to-bumper bit where every year when the Twins lost to the Yankees in the playoffs, and then I think only one time won the World Series, even though they beat us like 9 years in a row, we would just preview the World Series like the Yankees were in it.
Yes, we would.
We're not ball guys, so people would assume that we would have just missed it.
What a bunch of idiots.
And given that months had passed since the Twins had played because it was always the first round, we would say the Yankees are taking on the Giants in Game 1 of the World Series. First pitch from the Bronx is 7:07. And it would always be the Rangers or the Angels or whoever it would be. And just want to warn people, we might bring that back if Vegas beats the team that nobody could beat, the Colorado Avalanche, and they lead the series 1-0.
Best of 7, so it's a long way to go.
Long way to go.
Might be some ups, might be some downs, but yeah, it caught my eye, not going to lie to you, on the way in.
It's a good game. Good game. They made it interesting. They have a way of making things interesting even when they don't play well, Colorado, and they did make it interesting. The Western Conference Finals in basketball, they're finally interesting, or interesting for a different reason, and that Oklahoma City did what they had to do. Won Game 2 last night, 122-113. SGA, the MVP, played much better than he did in Game 1. He paced the Thunder with 30. And you opened the show with it. Isaiah Hartenstein might be the MVP of the game in how he handled Wemby, holding Wemby to 21 points on just 16 shots. Wemby did have 17 rebounds, but he played 27 minutes last night, got 13 rebounds himself, added 10 points for a double-double there, and that series now tied at a game apiece, heading to San Antonio Davy.
Foxy sat out again.
Yep.
Now we've got more injuries, right?
Dylan Harper.
Harper.
Hamstring.
Hammy. And who's the...
Jalen Williams. Banged up
one
again.
of the Jalen Williams is now listed as day-to-day.
The one who's been hurt.
With the same hammy that has prevented him from playing a bunch of games this year. So injuries might end up being a factor. I mean, technically the Spurs got, a split the first 2 games. But I don't think we can assume that Oklahoma City is going to lose the next 2. I do think it's going to be a long series, but it may well depend in part on who's available and who isn't. And I'm assuming Fox is going to play Game 3.
I would think so.
But there was a quote from somebody saying, well, if this was the regular season, he wouldn't be playing at all. And so,
but it ain't.
It ain't. But does that mean, all right, maybe he's limited enough? They're saying we can't just throw him out there to throw him out there. So we'll indeed see. But you told the story of it last night. Was Hartenstein just said, we're going to beat the hell out of them, and let's see what they call. And they didn't call much. I don't even know how many fouls he ended up with, but they went after him in a way that, as I said at the top of the show, Wolves fans are probably envious and jealous.
4 fouls for him.
4 fouls, okay. So
5 for SGA.
Is that 5? Interesting.
Yeah.
So, again, will Hartenstein be allowed to continue to be as physical, pushing, shoving, holding, harassing? It was textbook bad boys basketball from the Detroit Pistons out of the 80s, and it's strategically speaking, as long as you're not cheap-shotting him, and he wasn't getting cheap-shotted, then you got to try it. You got to test the limits of what the officials will allow, and on some nights they may say, well, we're going to let this thing go a little bit, and I do think it had some impact on Wemby being as influential, certainly as prolific a scorer as he can be, as we know, and as the Thunder found out in Game 1.
Can we agree to draw the line at physicality of pulling the hair of Stefan Castle? Can we agree that that's probably not the best thing to do? I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah, that's not.
Come on,
really
you can't pull the guy's hair. Castle, by the way, 9 turnovers again. So 20 turnovers in the first 2 games.
Yeah, it's true. And now, again, he's playing out of position.
He is, and he's young.
And he is young.
But a couple of them are
not good. They're not, so when I kind of got on the Wolves, why couldn't we do that with Castle? Well, Castle was not always in the same position because he wasn't asked to handle the ball as much. I'd still take him. But, he's feeling a little bit of that. And SGA responded nicely. Had a bad shooting night into the opener. Didn't he finish with 30 last night?
Yeah, 12 of 24 from the floor. Much better shooting.
That's still a lot of shots. You can say high volume, but he was much better.
But he made half of them. The other night it was 7 of 23.
That's true.
Whatever it was. So he's got to take 20 shots.
He does.
I know they've got other pieces, but so Game 3 there. Game 2 tonight out east at the Garden. The Knicks up 1-0 on Cleveland after that 22-point fourth quarter comeback and a victory in overtime. Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals, Montreal and Carolina tonight. Is that game on the fan?
You tell me.
It's not, because we have Lynx Toronto Tempo tonight.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So no Eastern Conference Finals tonight, but Game 2 of the West will be on tomorrow night. We're your home for Stanley Cup playoffs.
And you mentioned Knicks, Cavs?
I did.
Already? Yeah, okay. That's
Game 2 is tonight.
Game 2, and I think most people are assuming New York will romp in this one, that they got scared. By all accounts, they should have gotten scared enough by being allowed to steal one in Game 1 that they come out and play a better brand. I think James Harden is still starting, though. And Brunson was terrific in the fourth quarter. There's no question, but I hope they don't forget about Cat.
They won't.
They're still better off with Cat being part of the process.
We should mention as well, we don't have a ton of details on this, but Kyle Busch, who is Mount Rushmore, all-time NASCAR driver, has died at 41 years old. The Racing Series announced today. It was just this morning that they announced he would not be participating in Charlotte this weekend because he'd been hospitalized with a severe illness. That announcement came this morning, and then just in the last 30 minutes or so, they announced that he had passed away, which is unbelievable. Obviously tragic. Chris Hockey and Halvey are on their way to Charlotte to watch our guy, William Sawalich, I think, race with KFAN on his car this weekend. But that's just terrible, and we don't have a ton of news.
Detail.
Yeah, he did in the last race a week ago mention that he needed some medical attention after the race, had a sinus infection, asked for the doctor to give him some treatment after, needed a shot of something. So there's that backdrop there, that he was dealing with the sinus thing last week, and now he's dead at 41. So more details on that coming, but just wanted to make sure that we pass that along to people. The fan at BigDeck.com. Want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks. It is our national cash contest. The final keyword of the evening tonight is family. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword family.
It's allegedly supposed to be a big night in late night. I think a program is, quote-unquote, signing off. I want to get into that story, get to some texts regarding reaction to a couple of our guests today, including Bill Guerin and Gerald Posner, and who knows what else. We're wide open the rest of the show. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Barrero. on The Fan.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored.
Is tonight the last night for the Colbert Show? Stephen Colbert, is tonight the night?
You know, I have no idea.
I believe
know
it is.
It's a farewell tour. Seen a lot of Letterman lately.
The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. And I know we have texters who pay attention to these sorts of things. And it's definitely, it was 11 seasons, and it's fairly certain, I believe, that it ends tonight. And we've talked about the Colbert Show before. I find myself, I won't say, I don't know if that's a minority opinion or not, or again, this becomes political like everything else. If you are, the way it's supposed to work is if you're a righty, you can't stand them. If you're a lefty, you can't get enough of them. You champion them. I'm accused of being Dantifa half the time. And I can tell you that I believe and continue to believe that he has been remarkably overrated in his position. I like the way Neil Justin wrote it, and I'm guessing he's probably getting some abuse from the left side of the aisle for his piece, StarTribune.com. For those who keep an eye on late night TV, few, I should say, who keep an eye on late night TV believe the Late Show with Stephen Colbert was axed purely for financial reasons. Colbert's regular bashing of President Trump resulted in a raw deal, which is why so many left-leaning superstars like Jon Stewart, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and Bruce Springsteen have been stopping by in the program's final weeks to show their support. Agree with all of that. But then he goes on to write, does Neil, when the lights shut off on Thursday, I'm not going to miss him. He tries to give him his flowers, says he's a fan of Colbert's early work. His becoming, of course, a staple, the cocky correspondent, a staple on The Daily Show. No one ever captured the character better than Colbert. And then the quasi spinoff, The Colbert Report, was a one-joke premise that managed to stay amusing for 9 seasons. But he submits that he does not believe it's all that much of a loss. The way it's happening, if indeed it has anything to do with the Trump bashing, I've made my position clear on that. Government should stay out of that. Not whatever I think of him as a performer, I don't want decisions made on the basis of the President of the United States getting his feelings hurt, that he should somehow be taken off the air. Stupid. And again, if righties are honest, they'll understand that if you want to be consistent with that issue, then you should not feel good about government attempting to exert pressure to try to get somebody off of the air. But he lays out, does Neil, let me see if I can find the key section, 4 reasons why he believes Colbert fell short of greatness. I'm not going to read all of them. This was the key one to me. He wasn't different enough. In The Last Laugh, a CNN documentary that premiered Sunday, Colbert's former Second City colleague, David Rozalski, complained that late nights soon will be missing a place for bold expression. That's going to be lost, the current improv coach said. That voice that says, I've got a spine. Come with me. I'm not alone. End quote. But as Justin writes correctly, not really. Viewers who crave a liberal fix can still turn to Kimmel, Myers, John Oliver, and dozens of social media personalities. When Colbert skewered President George W. Bush during the 2006 White House Correspondents Association dinner, the late-night kings were Leno, Letterman, and Conan, comedians who rarely showed their political stripes. I think Letterman did as he got closer to the end, one could say, but that's, I think, largely true. By the time CBS tapped Colbert to inherit The Late Show in 2015, the field was overrun, with hosts wearing their Democratic leanings on their sleeves. Even Kimmel, who originally sold himself as a guy who watched more ESPN than CNN, had joined the movement. Most of Colbert's jokes could have just as easily come out of the mouths of his competitors, And in retrospect, CBS could have stood out and offered viewers a tempting alternative, recruiting someone like Nate Bargatze, Amy Schumer, Nathan Fielder, or Kevin Hart, talent that might have been more focused on generating innovative laughs than pushing political agendas. He also believes that Colbert was too smug, seems to be a super nice guy, but rarely resisted the urge to drop the names of famous friends, etc. And lastly, he mentions that, where did it go here? The key paragraph for me, and I'm a dinosaur. I fully acknowledge that and accept it. But he writes, does Neil Justin, late night TV used to make room for folks like Cavett, Charlie Rose, Tom Snyder, who all focused on stimulating conversation. The Late Show might have been more engaging if it had filled that niche. If that kind of show ends up being in Colbert's future, I'm more than likely to rejoin the fan club. Kessler and I have talked about, Kessler loves him. He and I have disagreed on this in the past. I don't even know. I think historically you've been more of a Kimmel guy, I think. But I don't want to speak for him.
I don't really have a huge opinion on any of them. I don't watch much of any of them.
Right. And what I've said continually is it's absurd to make it sound like there was something courageous about the approach that he took taking on politics. It's not illegal for a late night host to go that direction. You can do what you want to do. It's your show. But the notion that to carve out left of center positions over and over again on late night was something like, whoa, I don't see that. Man, he's out there on an island. I mean, give me a break. And my grievance isn't that there's not great stuff from this president and on the right-hand side of the aisle to skewer. My issue is, if you're going to do this right, you attempt to surprise people. I was talking about this with Gerald Posner about Bill Maher. If you come off as, I got to pull my punches on the other side of the aisle here. I might take a slight dig every once in a while, but I don't. No, there's too much at stake. Then I don't trust you, because that tells me you're going to mold whatever is out there to coming up with a certain conclusion every time, no matter what the particulars of a given story might be, that you're too dug in and you're too committed to that bit, and you're too committed to the old, I don't want to give sustenance to the enemy, so I'm not going to tweak. I'm not going to be satiric. Because what the best ones do historically, including Saturday Night Live, my guess is there are a lot of people left to center politically who are on that show. But they were capable of skewering everybody. And that's news on late night TV at this point. If you're going to do it at all, and I think my guess is there's a decent percentage of the population that would prefer being entertained, to use Neil Justin's term, they're looking for stimulating conversation and don't necessarily want to have that much more politics at the end of the night. But if you're going to do it, surprise me. He always knew what was coming with him. And so, no, I don't think it's any big loss. I will again add, I don't want him gone if it's for the wrong reasons. I want to be able to have my opinion on him, but I'm not going to sit here and say he shouldn't be on TV. No, that's chilling stuff. I have no interest in that. And we all tend to, too many people tend to say that if they don't agree with it politically, get him out of there. We don't need him in there. I just think he never struck me as someone that I got to go to. Now, again, admittedly, the teeth are in the glass earlier than they used to be. Yeah. But I'll be honest, I think that's part of the reason. And I think what happened, I think they ended up, several of the late night people ended up reinforcing each other. Where, I gotta keep up with Colbert. I gotta keep up with Kimmel. Did you hear his rant on whatever? This could even be pre-Trump. I gotta do that kind of rant. And to me, there's a sameness to it now for that reason. I mean, if you go back to the glory days, whether you think Carson should have been more political or not afraid to go to more, it should have been more willing to go to the down the political aisle, you had, now he was dominant, but if in my lifetime, when I was a kid, I mean, there were a lot of different styles late night in terms of the approach that was taken, in terms of whether it was topics of the day, whether it was just flat, we're going to bring out some singers and some comedians and have some fun with them, whatever the case may be. But to me, what people should be writing about and talking about is it's all the same. It's a steady diet of the same thing. And the only, I sense some people say they love it because they agree with what's being espoused politically. That's how they've decided. Oh, that's great. Did you hear so? That's exactly what I wanted to hear. But I don't think there's anything all that interesting about it because there's a sameness to it. It's almost homogenous at this point, where it's on the basis of what happened that day exactly where the thing is going to go. So in any case, he's obviously a talented guy.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's any great loss to late night TV history, even if I don't like the reasons that he might now be finishing up. I've said this a couple times. We're back to that martyrdom question where the biggest mistake I think Trump has tended to make, and even his head of the is it the FCC have tended to make, is they've made such an issue of him. It turns him into a martyr. He doesn't deserve to be. He shouldn't be a martyr. But that's what you do if you keep pounding away at the one guy. In some ways, you're actually giving him oxygen. I think to a certain degree, and he's getting the chance to play this martyr role. And it's like I don't think a broadcast history is going to look back on him as one of the greats that we, unfortunately was let go. They may want to talk about the reason, and that being the wrong reason he was let go, but he just doesn't do all that much for me. Not everybody has to be like Carson. I also grant that.
A different time.
Jack Parr, and this is really old school, did tend to be a little bit more political. And he didn't do as well as Carson, but he was very big for a period of time. So even then, I think I just like a little more variety, I don't see it. But if you are politically driven on everything, you may laugh not because the joke is funny, but because it comes at the expense of the politician you despise. Right? It almost becomes as simple as that.
You have to wonder if Colbert's background made it inevitable that he was going to go that way because of the Daily Show stuff that you mentioned. That's
true.
Because people forget. I mean, if you're hardcore like me, you won't, and but people forget that our guy Kreger's held both of those roles, right? The Daily Show and Late Night.
And Kreger's has told us that part of the reason he walked away from it at a point where he didn't really have to was he was becoming increasingly uncomfortable with being pushed in a direction that he didn't really want to go.
Right.
And that was ideological, quite frankly.
And that's those shows with him were not that way. The Daily Show obviously became big time political. So Colbert, that's where he's being brought up. So he's probably thinking, well, this is why people like me. So I'm going to lean into this even more. And then he leans, and Kimmel probably has to respond. Fallon, I don't think, does a bunch.
No, that's true.
Fallon's probably the one.
Yeah.
But it's just so different. So I'm wondering if that informed just how he thought, well, this is why I'm funny and this is why people like me. And by the way, I like all this stuff. This is what interests me. I like being the political guy.
Right. Yes, that's true.
Because I'm just thinking about my own life, and I don't do this much anymore. I used to fight to stay up to get to the late night stuff.
Me too.
Like fight it. Saturday Night Live, Leno, Letterman, Conan, obviously, Kreger's, obviously. Like if you somehow got to the Late Show, you're just thinking like you won the lottery. I stayed up to watch this, but you did it because I want to see what they're going to do. You felt like there was a reason to stay up to see if you were going to catch the funny new bit, or the year 2000 for Conan, or the 5 questions for Kreger's, all the stuff that Dave did, obviously, and Jay. And now maybe it's because you can watch everything the next day so easily. True. And if you miss anything, even on SNL, they're probably packaging it as the night goes on so you can watch it the next day, anything you want, any sketch you want to watch. There just doesn't feel like a reason to like fight to stay up anymore because of what you said. You kind of know what you're going to get. You don't feel like you're going to miss anything.
No.
Other than a Trump joke or here's Biden wandering off or whatever.
As you say, there's a package. There's places online where you can get the whole roundup in the morning. And you start going, oh, wait a minute. Is there a show there? Or does that tell us everything we need to know, that it's the rounding up of whatever the political hot potato issue is of that day, and here's what, he had to say about it. Here's what Kimmel had to say about it. And once upon a time, those were viewed as shows, right? They had components, as you say, that made them feel like it was a show. And that didn't mean they couldn't touch politics or that it never came up, but that the conversation was the thing, not necessarily the lecture, which it in a lot of cases, in Colbert's case, it just became, I think, very much a political lecture. And I don't know what the surveys show about. Do people want that at the end of their day? They might want that, but is that the time that they want it? I mean, the business obviously has changed a great deal, but why? Was there demand for it, or was it just started floating in that direction, and then, well, we got to kind of keep up with it? I don't know. And the other thing that's changed is those shows are so expensive to do.
Yeah.
They don't make the money that they used to, and so I think that's another practicality here that means we're never going to see the quote-unquote glory days again, because I don't think they're going to invest the kind of money, because there's no indication they're going to be able to make the same kind of money that they grew accustomed to back in the glory days.
And they're probably making money on the clips the next day, and you got to make money on those. They've got to hit something. They've got to be viral. They've got to get in the algorithm. They've got to play. You've got to play the hits a little bit. It can't just be, kind of a run-of-the-mill funny milquetoast bit. It's got to be something to get the conversation going.
I'll tell you another thing that I think is part of this story and is a relatively new element. I think in the cycle we're in, from an X standpoint, from a social media standpoint, there's almost a feeling of I'm obligated. I might have several opinions on this, and this, but I am obligated during my show to get into each and every one of them. Whereas once upon a time, it may be, well, I have my opinions on it. They might not be that different from your opinion, but I'll decide when I want to go down that road, and I'm going to decide how often I go down that road, and I might even determine that I might be more effective if I don't feel like I'm being told where's Kimmel on this? Where's Colbert? You got to weigh in on it, right? Says who? We end up allowing other people constantly, because they're doing all these litmus tests, as we were talking about Gerald Posner, to tell you not only what you have to say, but how often you have to say it. And believe it or not, sometimes less might be more. You say, well, that's not what I'm doing tonight. I got a couple of guests. I'm going down a completely different road tonight. I'm not even sure if people hosting these shows are allowed to at this point, or if they feel so pressured because all day it's better. I'm watching you. You better say what I think you need to say on this issue, and you better say it tonight, or end of story. We get some of that here, quite frankly, over many, many years, and certainly the last, I'd say, 6 to 12 months, depending on that story. And at some point you learn you have to be true to yourself a little bit. And I'm sure Colbert's saying I was true to myself, because that is what is important to me. But the question is whether it being important to you is necessarily the same thing as making the best decisions for building in this case, a TV show or a late night TV show or a product. Presumably there's a reason people like to laugh at the end of the day, right? And so does the commentary, does the laughter always have to be inspired by the 2 or 3 political stories of the day, or can it actually maybe include some other elements and even some other parts of the culture? Let's do this. Let's pause, and we'll get to some text on this controversy. Good reaction coming in. We'll get back to some reaction to our discussion with Gerald Posner for some folks who I don't think quite understood the point that I was certainly trying to make, and I think that Gerald was to a certain extent. And we'll maybe keep it on some non-toy department items. maybe we move the inbox to tomorrow's program.
Yeah, we should. Give people time.
Because tomorrow's Friday, correct?
It is.
We got an opening there.
We will.
Yeah, so we'll get to, we'll have, I think, a very good finish to the week. Let's get a pause in now, though.
This is Bumper to Bumper with Dan Barrero on The Fan.
$1,000! The Fan, along with Big Deck.
With longtime contributor to the program, Gerald Posner. He and his wife, Tricia, have published an article in Skeptic magazine titled The New Normal for Anti-Semitism. And it in our discussion with him, it struck a nerve with lots of people. And you want to talk about a subject that really can't be explored on late night? This is it, because I had a couple texts earlier from people very unhappy, suggesting that too many times individuals, whether you're talking about politicians or just your average citizen, is expressing disagreement with Israeli policy as it pertains to the Palestinians and other things. And often, according to this charge, those individuals immediately have to answer to the charge of anti-Semitism. We've talked about this before. That isn't fair. You should be able to criticize the policies of the government of Israel without it automatically, okay, there you go again. I see. Okay. Yeah, no, that's code. It can be code. It doesn't have to be code. I don't disagree with that concern. But I will tell you, I don't know if people are paying attention, and that's part of what this story that they wrote for Skeptic Magazine is about. I think if you're reasonable, you also have to acknowledge, because that first point is an important acknowledgement to make again. But a pretty important acknowledgement is also this. The number of stories, incidents, situations in the street in which no meaningful distinction is drawn between somebody who, quote unquote, is involved with Israeli policy or connected with Israeli policy and a Jew. How many stories do we need to have laying out the number of places in which those of the Jewish faith say, I now often have to second guess what I wear in terms of, that indicate, that might be signaling of my religion, of my faith. So let's not be disingenuous. Yes, it's too easy to call any criticism of Israeli policy anti-Semitic. But you can't leave out the rest of the story, which is as more and more people get drawn into this, the whole Palestinian situation, there are endless examples at synagogues, in the streets, in schools, indicating that those who've decided they are going to fight for what they view as the righteous cause of the Palestinians, leaving out any nuance, by the way, of how we got there, but I don't want to go down that road, that there's perfect willingness, and there's also something anti-Semitic about, well, you better explain yourself. Where are you on Israeli policy? Stand up, be counted. No one should have to be in that position, quite frankly, because someone else is presumptuous enough to say they should. So the incidents we've seen are endless. And regardless of the righteousness of the cause, if you can't see the way the lines have been blurred that go well beyond whether it's a protest on policy to a flat-out protest of Jews and the Jewish faith and its connection to that country, you're not paying attention. That goes on and on and on. And, you know, Gerald talked about the horrific shooting at this massive mosque in San Diego, and the manifesto of two kids, 17 and 18. And I know there's a lot of people who say, well, we shouldn't even give their manifestos the time of day. That's what you know, inspires the next one. But part of what I think Gerald's trying to do is to say, if you look at the level of detail and depth of the hatred across the board in this case that inspired those shooters, you sort of have to, you can't ignore it. You have to at least acknowledge it and see what we do with that. But there's plenty of that sort of thing that goes along. I don't like the issue of anti-Semitism being manipulated in that sense, that if you disagree with the policy, that's really code for something else. But you can't leave out the rest. I don't think, in my opinion at least, you can't leave out the rest of the story about what Jews are in many cases dealing with, and in schools, in this idea that you know, rise up and be counted. Where are you on this issue? As if you must agree with me on not just Israeli policy, but the existence of Israel. Let's be honest. That's where we are in many cases. And the idea is that then that gives people a right on that basis to harass, to go well beyond the normal mode of communication that we're talking about. Sorry, I don't think that makes to me, that does not make a whole lot of sense. 952 guy on Colbert, very early on, Colbert was comical because I don't think all the guests knew it was a bit unless it was staged. I wish I could remember early examples, and I'm not left or right, just a human. Your basic premise is on the spot, otherwise over the life of his career. Well, I think it did evolve, and you know, some can say, well, part of the reason it evolved is who has been president of the United States twice. This isn't politics as usual. It's not. I have no problem saying that. Folks on the right don't want to hear it, but there's some truth to that. But my position pretty much remains the same. Marie writes, how thin is the line between a lecture and expressing comedic observation? News of the day as we live it is a thin line of harsh reality and a disbelief that all you can do is laugh at the nonsense. All one's perspective, I guess. Well, I think there is a way to do that, but I think that's more satirical than I think we tend to see on a regular basis on late night TV. I think, unfortunately, CBS made the decision to pull Colbert due to pressure. Many other obvious incidents of overt and subtle pressure being put on media to conform to a certain messaging. Also, a lot of the attention to Trump is due to a fire hose of comments and actions by the current administration, those around it. It would be interesting to have seen what late night would have been had the election outcome in 2016 been different. Yeah, I mean, I'm on record. I think pressure absolutely was part of it, and I hate it. I can't stand it because I don't like the message that delivers. So that's where I try to defend. I think these aren't exclusive. I can think he's overrated as a late night host and still defend his right to be on the air. I do not want to see anybody taken off the air for that reason. It's a dangerous precedent, doesn't do any of us any good. And it actually makes Trump and his minions and his toadies look small. That they feel that particularly threatened. I lean left politically and absolutely repulsed by Trump, but found Colbert's show completely unappealing. After growing up with so much variety and creativity in late night TV, it just seemed so lazy and selfish for him to turn every show into a desperate political rally. I agree. Too many nights, it felt not just like we're talking politics, but a political rally. And again, it's his show. He can do it. But it gets, I think, tiresome unless everything that you do is ideological in basis, and so you just derive pleasure out of your guy continuing to get savaged. Conan and Letterman both based their shows more on absurdity or weird humor versus political humor. Carson was good as letting his guests be the stars. Late night shows have also maybe run their course with so many comedians now doing podcasts. Conan's podcast is great. Good observation. Excellent points across the board there. And again, I don't know how much of it is just is there now, if there's an expectation for more politics in late night, again, is it because there's a thirst for it now for whatever reason? Is it because of how polarized we are? Because we feel like so much is at stake? Might we be surprised if somebody in the networks has the foresight and maybe the creative vision to find somebody, to identify somebody out there? And they go, this would be a good late night host. To do maybe a potpourri of various things that would be more of a change-up. I don't know. That's why I'm not sure I'm buying that the public has demanded that much more politics. It's what they've been served up, and then they've sort of reinforced each other to a large extent. But I dare say there's probably somebody else out there. I don't know if that I could name the person who might have a chance to be very good and put it in a completely different direction.
Well, a lot of those people, like I think Neil brought up, like Nate Bargatze and some other comics.
Yeah,
they're doing pretty well on their own now. They don't. A lot of people don't need the late night gig. They've got their own thing going. It'd probably be a pay cut, and you're your own boss.
That's what's changed. You're right.
There's so many people making their own deals now, and being able to do whatever they want. Because Bargatze would be a great guy because he can do anything. He's acting. He's obviously very funny. He is extremely apolitical, and guess what? That's why he sells out arenas. Because anybody can go to the show, and they know they're not going to be mad about something that he says.
When your religious symbol is on the flag of the country committing atrocities, it gets harder and harder for uncultured folks to distinguish between Israel and Jewishness. I hope to God you don't mean what you just wrote there, man. I want you to reread what you wrote and think about the implications of what you're saying there. About Jews living in the United States. Let's just leave it here. Think about that a little bit. Think about what you are granting permission for people to do. I mean, we have religious symbols. We have various religions have symbols on nations' flags, do we not? Seriously? That's the excuse? That's enough. Yeah, well, it's tough to. Yeah, it's all kind of blurring together. So if you're an American Jew, sorry if you get confronted, but you're being called. Which side are you on? And does that question leave any opportunity for nuance? How complicated Middle East issues have been for centuries? No, not. That's the scary world we live in, man.
Bumper to Bumper with Dan Barrero on the Fan.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY Traffic Center.
This reported.
Looks like it's going to be another big celebrity night at the Garden.
Yeah. Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
Who'd you see?
It's really just a court shot where one of the reporters, ESPN reporters, is doing a stand-up, but...
Oh, Lisa Salters.
It's Lisa Salters, yeah. And then I haven't seen any yet, but I'm sure they're going to all line up. Some of them will be, and I'm sure Steph Marbury will be among them. He's kind of, as you talked about the other day, he kind of found a way to make himself part of it, even though he really didn't do hardly anything as a Knickerbocker. Yeah.
Marbury, Starks, Charles Oakley's usually there.
Yeah, I mean, that's real.
Patrick
Starks
Ewing,
is real. Oakley's real. Ewing's real. Clyde Frazier is real.
Clyde, yeah. One of my buddies is going to the game tonight that lives in New York.
Is it recency bias when Stephen A. Smith says that if Brunson leads the Knicks to the title, he will be the greatest Knick of all? I think it is.
It is, but he probably shoots up past a few people.
Probably, but I'm not going to forget their first two championships. I think Clyde Frazier was on both of those teams. Walt Frazier was one of the greatest guards who ever played. Again, different era, obviously. It just gets too easy. And the Brunson burner, it's a great story, and he was ridiculous this last game.
Yeah, great nickname, too.
Easy guy to root for. No question, especially when he gives up the ball every once in a while with the cat. But come on, man. It's just gets too easy. Now, I guess you could say, a lot of people would say Ewing is the greatest Nick, but he never won the title. So Brunson winning a title might put him in that spot. I don't know. Did you see? God, they're merciless on the Charles and Kenny and the Shaq panel. They were trying to even as they're trying to congratulate Shaq for. So I think he's got a master's degree from LSU.
Oh, okay.
Just as even as they're trying to congratulate him, Barkley can't help himself because Shaq is saying, "Yeah, I might have one more in me," and Charles says, "Oh, that's good. You probably have that time because according to my sources, you're still about $300 million short of being a billionaire, even though you keep calling yourself a billionaire." They're merciless sometimes. It's just brilliant.
It's the best kind of locker room.
Yeah, it really is, actually.
It's the best kind of locker room when you can cut somebody like that.
Yeah, no doubt.
Do you give Stephen A. any... I mean, he's a pretty authentic Knicks fan. He's not just a dude observing.
True. Yeah,
he rides pretty hard for the Knicks.
That's true. I don't know. I don't want some... just because it's been... I mean, what's working against some of the old-timers is it's just been so long.
Yeah.
That's not their fault, though, that teams afterwards couldn't get it done, or Ewing had the unfortunate, reality of playing pro basketball at the same time Michael Jordan was in the conference.
And then he had some injuries. I think 99
That's true.
was the time they made the finals. I think Spree was on that team, and he had some injuries. I remember talking to Trent Tucker about that, before I even worked here when Trent and I were tennis buddies.
Right.
And just talking about those games, and he would still talk to Patrick like 3 times a week because they were former teammates, and Patrick would come here for his charity stuff, and he's like, it's one of those deals. He's hurt. If it was the playoffs, if it was a regular season, he'd probably be out for a month, but he's trying to win the title. He's in the finals.
Do we have any new Wolves team, like names, sort of that irresponsible speculation kind of names that are coming up?
Well, what's interesting is today what everybody's trying to figure out, and maybe they've been doing this as well, everybody's been talking about the Randall, addition by subtraction.
Yeah.
You got to figure out a way to move him. People are starting to put together Rudy trades now, which I'd be very wary of, and skeptical of that they want to do that as well.
Well, if they do that, it won't be because Conley's down on him. He's not. I mean, I know people, want to hate him.
I know.
But he's not down on him.
Neither's Finchy.
That doesn't mean that he might not do it, depending again about, all right, what's the new team going to look like? A lot of it, I think, also does have to do with how quickly they think Berenger can be a factor.
No doubt. And
my guess is, man, it'd be a quick turnaround if you're asking him next year to start. Because I think he'd average like 6.5 fouls a game. He's got to learn the art of not fouling.
Yep.
I think they like his activity. There's no question about it. They think there's every reason to find him promising. But the rumor is, I think it's more than a rumor, is Boston has called them before about Rudy.
They need a center.
You look at Boston, they still need a center.
Even with Luka.
Yeah. So
what if that happened to Gaardsy? I know he doesn't really get to play there either, but he gets to play more.
Plays a little more, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Kawhi's name has come up a little. I don't know if there's anything to that at all.
I'm good.
On Kyrie, we'll see. And then there's Giannis. I think. And you mentioned DeJounte Murray.
Yep.
Which might be a sneaky good one. That might not be quite as. You might not have to gut your roster maybe to get the thing done.
Right.
Because it's a little bit like the Erickson X story, or the Wild center story. I know people want like the greatest center ever, and I'm not disagreeing. If you can get the greatest center ever, add him. But what's probably more essential, and we talked about this with Guerin between 3 and 4, is you get another Erickson Ek if you can, right? A good player. And it's the same here with the Wolves. Kyrie Irving, I think, could move the needle for this team. I actually do. But more important than whether you get a star at that position is you have to get someone who's good at that position, somebody who's more in his prime than Mike Conley, where you don't have to mess with that part of it anymore. You don't have to put players out of position. You need goodness there. You add goodness there, and then add another interesting piece, and hope that the kids get better. Who knows? It's still daunting when you look at the two teams at the top of the conference, but I don't think you can look at it that way. I mean, let's face it. As long as you have Anthony Edwards on this team, I think it's going to be really, really hard to ever say, well, we're going to blow it up.
Yeah,
right?
Or even take a significant step back for a year or two.
I think that's hard to do.
I agree.
I really do.
And I think it should be.
Yeah.
Because I get it, what we're watching in the West right now, the last two games. So I've gotten those texts a million times. I'm sure you have too. Like, why bother? This thing's about to, go completely San Antonio's way. Well, a year ago, it was Oklahoma City's going to win 5 in a row. And before that, it was the dynasty before that. It's like, you can't just cede everything to those two teams. I agree. In this postseason,
and
you see how many different things.
Exactly.
Yes, injuries, young players that don't pan out or want to get money.
Yeah.
Remember James Harden in Oklahoma City. They all made the finals when they were 20 years old, basically.
We all like to make these proclamations because at the time we say them, it sounds cool.
For sure.
And there's some truth to them, but the idea that the things are constantly changing. And you've given a couple of examples of it already. It's amazing how quickly, how different things can look. With Wemby, how's his body going to hold? The guy's this year averaged like 20. He was under 30 minutes.
Exactly.
Now he's playing more minutes and so far holding up pretty well.
Yeah, that's true.
But is that going to have an effect on him? There's a lot of ways you can't. As much as I know the easy way out, I'd take it. Go to the East, and that still might happen. But in the interim, you still have to.
I'm not punting on the next 2 years.
I don't. I wouldn't either.
I might be delusional, but I don't think they're as far away from legitimately contending as some others do. I get it's daunting what we're watching
Depends
now.
about, if we are able to lower the moodiness scale. I think that's a big part of this. And you have to, if you look at we talked about this even last year, logically. The way the game is played now, can you on a regular basis afford to have 2 of your 5 starters be fairly irrelevant offensively? And by that I mean Conley when he would play and Rudy. That's a hard road, man. And now, this last year they didn't start Conley. Obviously they went to Dante DiVincenzo, maybe in part for that reason. But you're going to have to, you might have to lose something to gain something, and that's where you got to do the calibration, all right? Because if you lose Rudy, you're kind of starting over defensively. So you either have to find somebody else who represents a Rudy light, or you have to say, we're turning ourselves into much more of an offensive team, and here's how we're doing it. I don't know. We'll see. Let's take a pause. We'll come back and remind you what you missed and what we have coming up on a very busy program tomorrow. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Barrero on The Fan.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY Traffic Center.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
Thank you to Billy Guerin, who joined us in the 3 o'clock hour of the broadcast. If you're a hockey fan, I heartily recommend you podcast it. Even if you're not a hockey fan, I think you might be entertained by it.
But you know what?
Just trying to figure out the Guerin pauses. That's become the biggest challenge over the years, because I think he's pausing longer now than ever.
Yeah.
So, and he only swore once, correct?
Once, yeah. The over-under's usually 1.5.
Yeah.
He got the under today. S-word, too. I mean, we probably could have just let it go.
Yes.
I think he almost did it a second time, but he caught himself.
Yeah.
How many times do you think he's ever coaxed like an extra first-round pick out of a GM because of a pause? Like somebody says something, he goes, I'll give you, just name it, Quinn Hughes in a second in 2027, and he kind of pauses.
Possible.
He's like, all right, make it a first.
It's a master negotiating ploy is what it is.
It is. Yeah, that's what they say.
Wear people down at least. Also, want to thank Gerald Posner, who joined us at 4:30 to talk about that horrific story at a mosque in San Diego, in which I believe there were 3 killed. And then the alleged perpetrators turned the guns on themselves as well. It's a scary story with a scary background, which Gerald tried to put all together. We got into some other stories with him, too. Always fun and entertaining and interesting when we have Gerald on. Andy Luger, I think we're going to get a quick segment with him tomorrow reacting to the Amy Bach sentencing, which was made official earlier today. We're working on that. We're probably going to move the inbox to tomorrow's program as well. Dr. Dan's inbox. Laval tomorrow. Guestling, or do we give him the week off? I don't know. We'll talk about that.
Maybe GM stuff.
Yeah, I guess there's always GM stuff or whatever.
Draft.
That's
all that.
We'll figure all of that out. I do know that we've got Lynx on the Fan tonight, correct? Against Toronto?
One of the expansion teams.
That's true.
The Toronto Tempo. Their president, a woman we've had on the show. Teresa Resch.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
We had her on when she was with the Raptors.
Remember that?
And they won the title in 19.
Back in
Lakeland, Minnesota's own. It was fun.
That's true. It was a lot of fun. And the inbox tomorrow.
That's what we used to have to do around this time. We'd find local angles for teams that were in the playoffs, and we still have to for winning championships. But at least now we got 6-7 weeks out of the deal.
Larry Mondella guy wants to know if summer hours start tomorrow, and will that affect whether the inbox actually takes place? Also, had the winter sports teams not had playoff runs, would summer hours have started 6 weeks ago? Well, the irony is, I don't even think we did summer hours last summer.
No, I can confirm we didn't.
much to your delight.
I can confirm we did not.
Yeah, I'll talk to Abbott. I don't have strong feelings about that, but I thought if we did it a little bit later, but we'll see. Because it is Memorial Day weekend this weekend.
We are best of on Monday.
Best of on Monday. I'm taking Sunday off, too. I'm going to start taking a bunch of Sundays off, to be honest with you.
So it's summer hours for sermons.
It might be summer hours for sermons.
Got it.
And then occasionally on Friday, too. But if you're going to write a letter, Larry Mondella guy, just make it good. And if you make it good, I'm sure Gaardsy will include you, correct?
I usually do, yeah.
He's pretty much in there most of the time. 612 guy writes, Dallas was in the finals 2 years ago and looking good for a while. Yeah, it's another example. Remember, Dallas was on the run. It's like, well,
yes,
Luka and Kyrie, forget it, right? I mean, that's just they're going to be relevant every year.
So is Nico Harrison? Is he running the Spurs, and will he trade Wemby somewhere? Maybe to the Eastern Conference?
That'd be quite a story.
That's how the Mavs thing blew up.
Yeah,
and I don't see Wemby hitting the buffet maybe as much as Luka did.
No.
And he might need to, actually.
Yeah,
if he does, it's a bad thing.
Yeah. You might be right about that. I still want him actually